Hey, what's up, everybody? John Odermatt here, host of Felony Friday. And did you know that we have a weekly show dedicated to sports and gambling and telling ridiculous stories? It's not a public show. It's behind our paywall in the Lions of Liberty Pride. It's called Degenerate Gamblers. It is myself and Brian McWilliams and the elusive legal counsel of the Lions of Liberty, Rico. And every week on Degenerate Gamblers, we review what's going on in college football, pro football. Maybe we talk a little bit of playoff baseball, not much though. But more importantly, we tell ridiculous stories from our daily lives and from our past. So in order to get access to that, you got to join the Lions of Liberty Pride. You can go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty to get access.
Welcome to Felony Friday, a presentation of the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, John Odermatt.
Felons, friends, and freedom lovers, welcome back to another edition of Felony Friday, a weekly show right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. If this is your first time listening to Felony Friday, shame on you. What took you so long? This is the 198th episode. You got a lot to catch up on. But thank you. If this is your first time, thank you for tuning in. Please, whoever sent you here, whoever sent you this link, please thank them, because we got a great show for you today. Got an awesome guest who is going to share her story of spending time in prison, the struggle that she went through, really in the lead up to prison, and then sort of a rebirth and a new outlook on life while she was in prison, and now after her time in prison, just doing some incredible things. So I'll introduce my guest in just a minute. Before I do that, just want to remind you that Felony Friday, one of 3 shows on Lions of Liberty. The other 2 is our Monday show hosted by Mark Clare. It's an interview show that focuses on libertarian philosophy, interviews leaders in the movement. Wednesday, we have Electric Liberty Land hosted by Brian McWilliams. It's your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty. Of course, Friday, today, Felony Friday, the best show on Lions of Liberty. But I think Mark and Brian would agree that this is the most important show. In fact, I say that all the time because it's about the criminal justice system, and there's nothing more important than the individual. And I think more now than ever, with criminal justice reform, we have virtually one of the only policies, one of the only segments out there where we have a unified front, a lot of buy-in from people on the left, right, center, progressive, conservative, libertarian, moderate, whatever. People all agree the criminal justice system is broken and want to reform it. So you can get all 3 of our shows by subscribing anywhere you get podcasts. We're on all the apps: Apple, Stitcher, Overcast, TuneIn, Spotify. We're on everything. Just go to those, subscribe. We really do appreciate us. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review to help us out. Do appreciate that. Today's episode is 198, like I said, which means the show notes page can be found at lionsofliberty.com/FF198. Let's get rolling with today's show. My guest today on Felony Friday is Mimi Harrison. Mimi is an author and a formerly incarcerated individual. She served 5 years, or almost 5 years, and was released from prison in September of 2016. She's an author. She's written 4 books. Her autobiography is called She's Just Like Me, which tells the story of how a churchgoing girl became immersed in the volatile drug culture on the streets of America. She's here to share her story and to talk about how she advocates for reform in the criminal justice system. Mimi, welcome to Felony Friday.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. And this isn't the first time we've talked. A little peek behind the curtain. This is actually the second time we're recording here. We had a little technical difficulties, so I'll just like to thank Mimi again for working with me here. And so let's get started. What I like to do during these interviews, when I bring on people like yourself who have been through the criminal justice system, I like to start at the beginning. So just to give my audience some background on who you are, if you could just share some details about your early years, where you grew up, what your childhood was like, stuff like that.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. And as a child, I had a great upbringing. My mom and my dad was both in the house. They were married. We stayed in church. We had a church upbringing. We were always in church. We did everything together. We traveled. Everything was great. And at the age of 13, my mom and dad, they divorced. And once they divorced, my mom had put in a transfer, and we moved to Kansas City, Missouri. And at 13, I think my dad was feeling a little guilty, and he just was showering me with everything, which he already gave me everything anyway. But it was like, to me, he felt like a guilt trip. So he was just giving me money. So I had a very good upbringing. And in Kansas City, I got out of control. And that's where everything spiraled out of control. And that's how I ended up in prison as well.
So was it anything specifically in Kansas City outside of, the dynamic of having your divorced parents and dealing with that? Was it, was it the people that you were friends with or that pulled you into it, or what happened there?
Well, before I had left Kansas City, as I said, my parents, they always gave me money. They gave me credit cards at 12, 13, even though it was like, you spend $200 or $300, you bring it back, get you a few outfits. So I always had access to get their credit card or, and go get things. So when I couldn't get what I needed out of the $200 or $300, I started stealing. So it went from stealing to selling drugs to being in Kansas City to, like you said, hanging around the wrong people. Mm-hmm. And then there goes, in that age, the crack epidemic. And it was where, hey, everybody's making money. I want to make some too.
So how early did you start to understand, we're talking about selling drugs, selling crack, do you start to understand really how much money you could make? And did that happen quickly once you started?
Well, I mean, to be a 16-year-old, I guess to say that it happened pretty quick to where now you don't have any money, you don't have a dime, to now someone gives you something and tell you, okay, this is $300. You give me this back, you make some. Now I'm making $300 a day. So it started happening quickly, but the 300 went to 800. 800 went to 2,000. 2,000 went to 5,000. 5 went to 10. 10 went to 20. So once it's coming like that, what do? You want more. And that's what I wanted. I wanted more and more.
So during this time, you're starting to get involved in this, in the drug trade. You're making money, becoming a successful entrepreneur, illegal, albeit, but understanding how to make money, right? At what point, or did you ever start to get worried that you could get arrested and spend time in prison?
Well, when I was younger, it never really it crossed my mind because a lot of the guys that I were dating, I mean, even not even going to jail, it crossed my mind of getting murdered because I had several boyfriends that had got robbed and been murdered, or a few that got life in prison. But it was like, I'm not going to do it. But then it was like, well, I'm still here. I think I'm slick, and I kept doing it. So yes, I thought about it, but it was like, oh well, I'm smaller than what they're doing. They won't get me.
So how many years were you selling drugs for? So you said you started at what age?
I was like 16 years old.
16, and then when you got arrested, it wasn't for drugs, but
Exactly. I didn't get arrested. I got indicted in 2010.
okay.
So from 1988 to probably 2005, I sold drugs. Even though I had jobs in between, a couple of jobs, not many, but I did have a job, but it was like, no, this is not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think, hey, I'm here for 8 hours making this, like $150 a day. I make $150 in 10 minutes.
Yeah, and you're making that at work too, and you got to pay taxes on top of that too. So.
Exactly. Well, exactly.
So, how did it all go down when you did finally get arrested, get caught?
Well, like I said, I got indicted in 2010. So pretty much after like selling drugs, it was like, I'm not going to sell drugs. Oh, I'll switch and start doing fraud, which I felt, well, if I just do fraud, that's not as bad as drugs, which it was because I was hurting people, taking all their money, and they would have to, I had to think about it like, what when somebody stole my money? Because I've had my money taken off of a credit card, and, so I'm like, I'm still destroying someone's life. So, but I kept doing it. So when I stopped, that's when they got me. Well, I stopped. I didn't completely stop. I called someone to get a flight for someone, and it was a good friend, which was an informant. And I called someone to get her airline tickets, and that's how I got indicted.
Okay. So the system was like you were using other people's credit cards to buy airline tickets, or?
Yes.
Okay. So when you did get indicted, did you understand at that point in time what kind of time you were facing? Did you understand what kind of trouble you were in?
Yeah, I did, but I knew I was in trouble, but I didn't know I was looking at 7.5 years. Because for one, I'm like, well, it's fraud. I called somebody. I mean, these phone calls, what I was thinking was, okay, they're a couple of $100, so maybe they'll charge me with what I did, but they charged me with everything someone said I did, plus what I did. So, hey, I mean, I was guilty. I do admit I was guilty. And I will say this. I had a long run, so hey, it was time to sit down. And had I not got caught up, I probably would still be doing the same thing. So I guess God did it for a reason.
So once you were in prison, you're sitting in that jail cell. Was there like one moment, or was there something that happened that caused you to reflect upon the way you were living, the choices you were making, and sort of initiated that change? Or could you walk us through that?
Yes, well, I mean, that actually happened before I went to prison. It was when I was self-surrendering and I had to walk away from my children. That's when I realized how much my family needed me. And it was never about money with them. It was about they needed me. So that before I ever even got in prison, that was the main thing, that it was like, I'm leaving my children. I did something bad that I shouldn't have done because my family needs me. And once I got in prison, that was the same thing. Like my family needs me. Mm-hmm. I left an 11-year-old child behind.
You had an 11-year-old, and how old were your other kids at that time?
11, 25, and 27.
Okay.
And actually, my son was my co-defendant, and he's the 27-year-old.
Right. And what sentence did he end up getting?
He got 2 years parole. They indicted him because the informant, she gave him $170 for me. And
really?
also it was she gave him $170 for me, and he took that. And also they found it was a confirmation number in his phone. So he got indicted. He's never been in trouble in his life. And I mean, he's a good kid. I mean, really, like, no gun carrying, no anything. So, I mean, hey, I was guilty. He wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Was that a felony or?
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Well, at least he didn't get time for that. But yeah, that really stinks.
Yeah, but he got a federal number, and I mean that's ridiculous for $170.
It is, for sure.
Yeah, so it, being away from my kids more than anything. Once I got inside, it was I did what I did. I have to take responsibility for what I did, and I take total responsibility. But that was hard, and thank God I had a really good support system, because I was shipped around and my family came no matter where I was. And other people, they didn't get visits. They don't get phone calls. They don't get anything. And it's so important for if people have someone that's incarcerated. I mean, just send them a letter. Mm-hmm. It means so much.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I don't know if there's been studies done on it or not, or I don't even think it matters if there's been studies done. It just makes logical sense. The people who are in prison who have friends or family or loved ones on the outside who are supporting them, reminding them that they matter, keeping them in the loop on things that are going on the outside, that keeps them connected and gives them hope. So, and that's so important. And I guarantee you, if they looked at it, people that have support and people that don't, probably by a pretty large majority, the ones that have support, probably there's some correlation there about having more success, once you get out of prison and reintegrating into society and all that stuff. So,
and I totally believe that. I really do, because I watched it firsthand, and I watched women that didn't have anyone, and they get out here, and I just see things like on my social media, and it's like, they're like, I can't get ahead, and this is happening, and that is happening. But I guess when you have a support or instrumental supportive support, it means so much. It does. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, especially so you were locked up for almost 5 years. So if you think about just technologically from that perspective, being thrown back into society, and having to learn all the new stuff when you got out, that alone, plus the fact when you get out, you probably didn't have a driver's license, so you needed help getting around, finding a place to live. To have help with that stuff it's immeasurable, really.
It really is, and while we're in prison, they give us all these classes, and they tell us about all these reentry programs, reentry this, reentry that. When we get out here, there's no one to help us. You go to see your PO, they tell you everything what you need to do, and that's it. There's no help for anyone getting out of prison too much.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, at the end of the day, the vast majority of the people who are in prison are going to be out eventually. And to not, really provide resources when you're in there and things like that, and to not give a helping hand once you do get out, really it's a public safety issue, because you're just making things less safe, not only for the person who's being released, but for, if they get back into the behavior that got them locked up in the first place, it's a cycle. I mean, that's
exactly.
recidivism, right?
Yes.
But I do want to ask you a couple more questions here about your time in prison. Did you have a a mentor or somebody in prison that was, able to help you out and help you to navigate?
Yes. Well, actually, I had a couple of mentors. At the first prison, I had a lady. Well, she helped edit one of my books, and her name was Francine Sweet, and she was a Jewish lady, and she was very sweet, very kind, and everyone would say, "Well, she doesn't like black people," and I'm like, "We talk every day. She hugs me, we a kiss on the jaw, like, have a good day." So I'm really dark. So if she don't like black people, I don't understand it. So she was a really good mentor. I was in Coleman, Florida with her.
Okay.
And when I got to Greenville, I went to the drug program, and I met a lady. Her name is Topeka Sam.
Right.
And actually, she does dignity for prison reform, and she's out of New York, and she has a transitioning home for women called the Loam. So we would walk the track, and she would tell me all of her ideas, and she would talk to me about my books and what was I going to do. And I told her I'm going to release a book when I get out, and I did that. And she's on CNN, and she's really doing a lot for prison reform.
Yeah, I need to get her on this podcast too.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. She was just on the Tamron Hall show the other day. So
really,
yeah,
okay.
Yes, very happy and proud for her. So
yeah, I see her.
I met a lot of women. I met a lot of mentors in there, because it's certain thing people think, oh, they in prison. They did this and that, but we're in prison. We made a mistake, and other people have to know they did things before, and they probably just didn't get caught. We made a mistake, and we paid for it, and now we're back out in society trying to get it back together.
Yeah. They say the average citizen commits 3 felonies a day. So the only difference between people in prison and people who aren't is people in prison got caught. So it's not like everybody's not bending the law a little bit or breaking the law. That's just a reality.
Right.
So I wanted to ask you, I know that you wrote your first book actually before you went into prison, right?
Yes. I actually started writing when I got indicted.
Okay. So and you finished it before you started to serve your time?
Yes, I did. I finished it. Actually, the day before I got indicted, I had my first book signing in Kansas City, Missouri, because I live in Atlanta. So I got indicted in Kansas City, and the day before I had a book signing that went really well, and that was my first book, my autobiography. She's Just Like Me.
Okay. And what does the title? Does the title have meaning? I'm sure it does. She's Just Like Me.
Actually, it does. I get ideas when I'm writing, and I'm not sure if you're aware of Jamie Foxx's song, She's Just Like Me. And he's talking about popping bottles in the club, and she's showing people love, and it's a lot of things he says, and I'm like, that's the name of the song, because that's me. Okay. That was me. So that's where that name came from. It's like basically we felt, hey, if a guy can do it, we can do it too. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't about being dominant with the guy. It was about just selling drugs or making money, mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
When did you first realize you wanted to write an autobiography?
Oh, well, probably like 1997, 8. I was telling people I'm going to write a book, and I said it for years and years, and people would say, you need to write a book. And because I was always everywhere, running around the United States, just doing things, basketball games, all-star games, football, Super Bowl. I was everywhere. So they was like, you need to write a book. And I didn't. And when I got indicted, I picked up my computer and I started writing. And now I have 3 books published, and I have one that I'm about to publish, and I also have my own publishing company called Boss Status Publishing. So we even help people that's incarcerated. If they want to get books out, we help them as well.
Oh, that's awesome. So how hard was that to get off the ground, the Boss Status Publishing?
Well, I have a business partner, and her name is Cherise Senior, and she was out here she was out, here, and she's in the corporate world. So we pretty much had our everything going before I even left. So she was handling everything when I was gone. So when I came out, I just pretty much had to pick back up and, relearn how, just re-educate myself on everything. And everything's going pretty good now. I mean, I won't say that it's great because I'm still trying to get myself together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I know that you like to cook as well. So would you say that your 2 passions then are cooking and writing?
Yes, cooking, writing, and I just love people. I love hard. So those are my passions, to just help people. Yes, the cooking, I'm planning on having a food truck within the next 2 years. And hopefully after that, I would like to have a restaurant.
Okay. So what would be the theme of the food truck?
Oh, that's actually, that's what I don't know what I really want to have on it, because there's so many different food trucks that I do want to be different. But right now, I'm just aiming for the regulars, like burgers, fries, chicken, soul, like greens, the sides, soul food sides, macaroni and cheese. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, food trucks are awesome. They're one of my favorite things. But I know that they, depending on the city, you got to get all the permitting and all that stuff, which can be a headache. But yeah, I wish you the best of luck with that, because I love food trucks.
You'll have to try my cooking.
Yeah, for sure. Getting hungry just hearing about it. I do want to ask you another question here. So, we've talked about some of the things you're passionate about. I personally believe that each individual has, unique gifts. Some people call them superpowers, things that really, when we're using them, we're really able to help the most people, impact the most lives. What would you say your gift or your superpower is?
I think it's my honesty and integrity, and I think I draw people to me, and it's like people will come for advice, or they just didn't. People come around me and they say my spirit is so warm. So it's like I'm a nurturer. And I guess I'm always trying to help or give. I don't care if it's feeding someone or just listening, not even talking, just listening. And so I would say that's my gift, even though writing and those, but that is my true gift.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, honestly, I would definitely agree with that. Just in the short time of spoken with you, I said at the top of the show we had the technical difficulties with the recording, and I mean, we had to do this again, and you were immediately, without a question, how can I help? How can we do this? And yeah, so I 100% agree with that.
Yes, no problem, John.
So before I let you go here, I do want my listeners to know how to learn more about you, maybe follow you on social media, how to read your books. I can put links on the show notes page. Are they all on Amazon or? Yes,
they are. They're on Amazon. They're on Kindle. They're on the Kindle. They're on the iBooks on iPhone. They're pretty much everywhere. So, but
Okay.
Amazon.com, and I also, like, if you go to my Instagram or my Facebook, and they like send DM me or something, I also do sign copies myself. I have books on hand that I will sign as well.
Okay. What's your Instagram handle?
Boss Status Pub.
Okay. So that's all your
Yeah.
social media, Boss Status.
Yes, it is.
Pub. Okay.
Everyone, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, every one of them. They're all the same. Boss Status
Okay.
Pub.
I forgot. I said I didn't have any more questions, but I forgot one. I think it's important, especially considering what you've been through, and when you look at the timeline, 5 years ago, I guess it was it 5 years? I guess it was less than 5 years ago. You got out of prison in 2016. It's 2019 now, so 3 years.
Yes.
If you look 5 years into the future, where do you see yourself? What kind of goals do you have for 5 years from now?
Well, for one, the first and foremost, my fourth book will be published and released. And hopefully within 5 years, I'll have another one coming out. Within a couple of years, I would like to have a food truck. And in 5 years, I should have a restaurant.
I like it. That is, that's a lot. That's exciting though. And it's all stuff you're passionate about.
Yes, most definitely.
That's fantastic, Mimi. Well, thank you
Yes.
so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed speaking with you today.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Mimi Harrison. I am so excited to see what the future holds for her. No doubt that it'll be a food truck and a restaurant and more books, successful books, much success. I wish Mimi Harrison, because she definitely deserves it. Just an outstanding lady to talk to today. Really happy with our conversation. It's such a big heart. If you guys knew what happened with our interview, and it was a mistake on my end, and she was so gracious and giving me more of her time. Just want to thank Mimi for just being an awesome person. So I don't have a lot to add today, guys. I do want to just talk about our Lions of Liberty Pride. You hear me talk about it every week. Why is it important? What is it? If you don't know, Lions of Liberty, myself, Mark, and Brian, our other contributors, JB, Rico, Howie, all of us do this. We don't take out any money for ourselves. We do obviously invest money back into the show, invest money to help us travel around, go to different events, things like that, invest money to get us new equipment, better equipment, so this podcast sounds better and better each and every episode. And we're always going forward, not backwards. Eventually, we would love to be able to sort of build a revenue stream, if you will, off of this podcast to be able to help us to free up more of our time, to give you a better product. And in order to do that, we're going to need your help, guys. So the way that you can help us is by going to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. And you can give us as little as $2 a month, and you get access to our private Facebook group. You give us $5 a month, you get our bonus content. $10, you get a bunch of merchandise and stuff like that. Up from there, there's a bunch of other levels. I do want to highlight our $50 level, where you actually get direct input into deciding what we talk about in one of our Conspiracy Corner shows, or we're going to have a movie watch that'll be available to the public, and you will get to decide what movie we watch at that $50 level. So obviously your contributions help us to grow the show, but what we try to do here at Lions of Liberty is match the value of what you're giving us with value in return. We're doing the best we can to do that, and we like to think we are some of the best in the business at providing our patrons with value. So please check that out, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. I am exhausted. I've been talking for sounds like forever, because prior to recording this here, I was on another podcast, friend of the show, Tori Wachtel, and the Unuseful Idiots podcast, which I believe is airing this Sunday night or Monday morning. I think I publish this. So Monday morning it'll be in your inbox. Subscribe to his podcast to hear me on the Unuseful Idiots podcast. And you get to hear my backstory. You get to hear what I think about gun rights and all kinds of other assorted things. I also talk quite a bit about Ross Ulbricht and Silk Road. So check that out. That's enough. I've talked enough. Hope you guys have an awesome weekend. I'm going to have a great one. And this is John Odermatt signing off. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.